How's January working out for you so far? Good, I hope. It's funny, isn't it? This time of year, there's optimism. Traditionally, there's optimism. There is this idea that January is it's not really winter, but it's the spring of the year. It's the start of something great. It's the optimistic view of what's to come. And I've always thought of Convo by Design as kind of a time capsule, if you will. Every episode is designed, no pun intended, but it's created to be a capsule, a snapshot of where we are at any given time. And if you go back and you listen to episodes from 2016, you will hear different ideas. And then as you go through and listen in 2017, 2018, you will see those ideas come to fruition. It's really interesting. But I've always thought, in talking to all of my friends in the design industry, that January represents optimism. Traditionally, it has. I think now it is a cautious optimism. We're still optimistic. We're still excited about the year and what's to come. But after the absolute chaos of 2025 in the industry, and again, I shouldn't say again, I haven't said it yet, but this is not a political commentary. It's really not. Just the facts, right? 2025 was incredibly chaotic. So towards the end of 2025, got together with a group at Design Hardware, talking about translating design in a chaotic market, a shifting landscape, and what is the focus of 2026. This program explores a collision of tariffs, sustainability, design business acumen, and shifting client expectations, offering a roadmap for navigating the volatility of the 2026 design landscape. But really, that's what it is how do you proceed smartly with the industry? And while I don't often cover the business of design, certain times warrant it, and this is one of those times. This was recorded live at Design Hardware in Los Angeles. I gathered a panel of industry leaders to dissect the economic and social forces shaping interior design and architecture as we head into 2026, which now in earnest is what we're doing. So, such a great group. This conversation features Eva Hughes of House Beige, Shelly Sandoval of the Lauzon Collective, Rachel Grachowski of RHG Architecture, and Priya Vij of Hapny Home. The conversation confronts the chaos of the current market, from tariff-induced supply chain disruptions to the critical shortage of skilled labor, really exacerbated by certain law enforcement agencies that are moving certain parts of the hands-on, the people that actually make the trades, right? The discussion pivots from the technical challenges of designing for disaster and uninsurability to creative opportunities found in circular economies and intentional sourcing. Look, chaos creates opportunity, right? This panel and each of the panelists argue for a shift away from fast fashion interiors towards a friendliness of durability, prioritizing materials that pass the grandparent test of longevity, right? Ultimately, this conversation emphasizes that in a volatile market, the most valuable currencies are transparency, deep vendor relationships, and I would say deep relationships in general, and educating clients on the true cost of craftsmanship, right? And we go into these things and these ideas a little bit more, the friendliness of durability. What does that mean? Supply chain as design driver, right? Designing for disaster, the labor crisis, and intentionality over modern, fast, quick. And by the way, we're going to talk about AI a little bit, but not a lot. And I think that's relevant and germane for this conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it resonates with you. And maybe you pin this one and you check back a few times during the year to stay connected. And you're going to hear all of it right after this. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific Sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. Good morning.
Hello.
I love that. How are we?
Great.
We're good? Are we properly caffeinated? Okay, good. Good. It's important, right? My name's Josh Cooperman. I'm the host of Doctoring Up Design, which is the official podcast of Design Hardware. Thank you to Michelle and Jen and Avi and Stacy and Jaime and Sean for having me out, letting me do this and have these conversations. Really appreciate it. So if you saw the invitation, or maybe you didn't, and what we're doing is we're having a conversation about kind of what's next. First of all, let me just get a vibe here. Designers, architects, enthusiasts. Awesome. So the industry's changed a little bit, right, to say the least. And there's a lot of issues that we're kind of talking through in real time. And we're going to get into this, but this conversation is being recorded for Doctoring Up Design. And if you have your phones, after, you can look up Doctoring Up Design. It's available everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, and you can subscribe. You will hear this conversation, so we will be publishing this. What I want to do first is I want to start with Eva, and we'll go this way. Introduce yourselves. Name, company, and sort of a little bit about you, and then we'll jump right into this.
Yes. So, hi, happy to be here. My name's Eva Hughes. I'm the founder of House Beige. My passion and love for design came from my grandmother. She collected things over my entire life and really made her home personal to her. So I bring that into every project. I like for my clients to feel really taken care of, and it's not about necessarily the look of the finished product, but how they feel in the finished product. My studio has been operating since 2014, so and then prior to that I worked in a lot of luxury design sales here in LA. So thanks for having me.
I'm Shelly Sandoval. I'm with Lauzon, and I've been in the flooring industry for almost 25 years. I've worked with a couple of distributorships, and now I'm working for a manufacturer, Lauzon, out of Canada. I love hardwood flooring. I know and understand all floorings that we use in our industry, but my love has always been wood. And I am really excited and honored to be asked to be on the panel. So thank you for having me.
I'm Rachel Grachowski, founder and principal of RHG Architecture and Design. We have a studio both in New York and in LA, and relatively new on the West Coast, a few years. And but I understand the market quite well just based on growing up in the West. And our approach to design is very much about the experiential. From the wellness is a buzzword now, and I actually hate that because I'm excited for everybody else, but for me this has always been my passion. I approach design as a spiritual practice. It's really a ritual of care for clients, and we do both residential and hospitality.
I am Priya Vij, super excited to be here, thank you. I am the founder of and designer behind Hapny Home, which is a cabinet hardware brand that I launched about 3.5 years ago. My dad has his own cabinet hardware brand, so I grew up in this industry and I've been around hardware for a long time, so just trying to bring some fun and energy and excitement to the hardware space.
I want to start in kind of an odd place, because Rachel, you brought it up. When it comes to wellness, buzzwords, if I asked each of you, I won't put you on the spot, but if I asked each one of you to tell me what luxury means, I think I would probably get 4 different descriptions of the word luxury. And I feel like part of many of the issues that we're having, and we're going to get to the hard issues, I feel like there's hard skills, soft skills. There are hard issues like tariffs, supply chain. There are soft issues. Terminology. Architecture is a language, right? Design is a narrative. But social media kind of changed all that. And I think, and I want your opinion on what is, not post-pandemic, but just this year. I don't know if you guys heard, there's been a little chaos in the world this year. And I'm curious, what have been, and Eva, I'm going to start with you. And this is a discussion, not a Q&A, so if you have something, jump in, please. What are some of the biggest challenges you face this year as it relates to the communication between clients and designers, between clients and their architects, between architects and trades, between specifiers and showrooms and manufacturers? It's a Tower of Babel. There's a lot going on. What are some of the biggest issues that have affected you specifically this year?
So we've learned how powerful it is to create a mood board at the start of a project, before anything almost happens, just to get on the same communication, like you were saying, with the client, because visuals, I think, tell a really powerful story that sometimes words get minced. And so when we start with a mood board, we usually are able to get on the same page a lot faster, because like you're saying, just like the word wellness, but the word modern has also become such a buzzword, and it means so many different things. And to an architect or to a designer, to an enthusiast, those are 3 different approaches to what modern means. And usually modern, the word by itself, sometimes I hate it because it means nothing really by itself. Like mid-century modern would mean something, but just saying, oh, this is modern, it's like, okay, well, what kind of modern? So when we create a mood board, we're able to really dial it in and figure out what our expectations are, what our taste levels are, and it makes it a lot clearer for myself, for the client, and then for any other trades that are being a part of the project.
So Rachel, as a specifier as well as an architect, same question to you, because I think it's interesting how the same question might be answered differently between a designer and an architect.
Yeah, I would say, really this year, the chaos that's happened this year has resulted in not always getting the right answer from the vendor. So the vendor might not actually know about the product that they have in stock. It might be changing rapidly because we had an incident recently where we had an extremely fast project, and it was for a theater, for a nonprofit, and we needed carpet, and we needed in-stock hospitality level carpet. And we called all the vendors, this is how much we need, and ultimately to find one vendor that had one acceptable carpet for the one project. And then we went to order it and found out, no, it's 2 different dye lots. It actually doesn't work, right? So my point being, like, they don't always know. And I think part of that is because of the chaos that's happened, things go out of stock really, really fast. And they also don't know when things are coming in. Also, the prices are changing so rapidly that they give us one price, we make a decision based on that, and then by the time it gets ordered, it's a different number. We've also obviously been in situations where we've gotten the call, hey, by the way, it's import, you're gonna have to pay another $450 for this light fixture, and you have 24 hours to decide, right? So lots of things like that has made our job a lot more stressful. And also what's difficult about that is when you're a designer and architect, you're making decisions well ahead of when it's going to be purchased or installed. And you end up redesigning. And nobody likes that.
Shelly, I could feel you emitting an energy like you better come to me after this because I want to speak to this.
So, to solve your problem, Canada is our neighbor, and that's the company I work for, Lauzon, and we do not have any of those issues. Mr. Lauzon has cutting rights for 2 million acres of forestry, and we could deliver your floor within 2 to 4 weeks, and we don't have any issues with what's going on in the world right now. Thank the Lord for that one. And so we are not affected with the tariffs and the supply chain. So you can come
Excellent
our
to know.
way.
I love it.
Okay, now let's cut to Priya, who might have a different response.
Yes, I'm very, very affected.
Ladies, instead of talking to one another,
Yeah.
talk to us, because the sound is a little tricky. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm very affected by tariffs and supply chain issues as someone I'm importing my hardware from overseas in Taiwan. So as a small business, the way I've kind of been managing that is just really, really proactive communication. We've been trying to keep our prices the same as well. So like minimizing price increases and fluctuations to really kind of put them at maybe once a year or twice a year at most, being super proactive with when we're communicating it. That's kind of in how I've been absorbing and flowing through the chaos of the last couple of months. And I know I've seen even my showroom partners and other retailers say that quotes are honored for 24 to 72 hours, whereas like that was never the thing. So I totally appreciate that. It's just made long-term planning very, very difficult. And I think just from the vendor perspective, same in many different ways. So just trying to be really, really communicative about that as much as possible. But it's hard. There's no easy solution.
Well, there isn't, but I'm curious, and back to Eva and Rachel, that being said, and now hearing two different sides of the very same coin, which is really interesting, and how are you supposed to know who is not having issues, who is having issues? It's a hard thing. So I'm curious, when it comes to adapting, how are you adapting? How do you modify your specification process? How do you re-engineer the thought process of your clients? And it's funny because we want to say hospitality is different from residential, but it's really not. Clients are clients, budgets are budgets. How do you project manage? What tools are you using? And how do you engage with your clients to make them both informed yet reasonable?
So I would say on our residential side, as architect, the way we set up our projects, which is different than a lot of the interior designers, is we don't actually purchase like the general contractor usually is purchasing. We might purchase, decorative lighting or maybe hardware, but usually we're speccing it and they're buying it. That is one thing that's changed. And the reason that's changed is because when it's decided, we can actually order it, purchase it, and stop and put it in storage. And therefore, we're not at the whim of when the contractor decides it's like the right time to buy, and then we have to reselect. So that's been one thing that we've done. The other thing I would say is clients have been wanting more assurance about the budget than they did before, and I think there's like a lot of uncertainty on their side too. Like, hey, I'm committing to do this kitchen, I'm committing to do this bathroom, or this whole house project, and like, is it going to be 500,000? Is it going to be $1 million? Like, I don't really know, and so we didn't used to do this, have been creating budgets at the beginning of a project to really try to help manage that and help them understand where the prices can go, and then talk about like what the swing could be in that project.
You are listening to a conversation about translating design in a chaotic market, a shifting landscape, in focus 2026. We'll be right back. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com.
Yeah, similarly to creating budgets in the beginning, we do something called a high-low budget. So we talk about what the highest point it could be and what the lowest it could be, and how we try to meet somewhere in the middle to kind of give clients a better idea of what that swing could be. Just because it's hard to be able to tell you at the beginning of a project what your taste will be and what the types of things you'll pick out. Another thing is we're trying to be over communicative with our vendors now. We had a situation with one vendor who we purchased a lot of fabric from them, and we based an entire theater room around this one fabric that was very unique and special. We ordered like 82 yards, and we were told that their mill it was going to be delayed. We were like, okay, we can absorb the delay. And then actually the reason why it was delayed was because they couldn't get the fiber in, or the flax that they were using wasn't up to their quality, and they rejected it. And so what resulted in that was our delay got pushed back further. But because our entire room was based on this one fabric, I mean, custom rugs, custom wall upholstery, things like that, wasn't something that we could change last minute. So we're actually currently in that situation now, and so we're trying to, okay, what questions could we have asked differently? How could we, communicate with them in a way that kind of puts us ahead of it? I mean, it's hard to say that it was all on us, but it's like, how do we shift and not just place the blame, but give our client the best experience? But then also kind of let them know that wasn't okay at the same time and what we could all do better.
I'm just curious, before we drill down on some other things real quick, what tools are you using? New tools for that? And it's funny because every time someone says AI, you have half the people who are like, oh, AI, tell me more about it. And the other half who are like, oh, AI, please don't tell me. Please don't say that again. And I'll just say this. The reason I ask is I was speaking with a designer recently, and she was just incredulous about this. She was like, there's no way, my clients love me. I'm not going to lose my clients to AI. And she's right. She's going to lose her clients to designers who know how to use AI, because it does make things easier. It simplifies the process. And there are so many tools coming out. And this is I want to open this idea up, because you have to learn a whole new skill set. You have to learn how to prompt. You have to learn how to use it. You have to learn how to make these tools work for you. And we really don't have the time for it. But I'm curious from the specifiers if you're finding ways to use that.
I mean, I personally am not, but I know a few of my designer friends have been using AI to sort of check stock, actually. And I have not done it. It's interesting because just on the way over, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about AI, and they were talking, and AI, like, as you're learning AI, you're learning about the prompts. You're learning about a program versus like a different pathway of education, which is really about critical thinking. And so I think my resistance to AI has been the fear of losing the ability to be a critical thinker. And I do use it, but I haven't necessarily used it on supply chain. I've used it more like for renderings, or maybe like we do an in-house rendering that I think is so-so, and I'll put it through AI and say, like, make this photorealistic. Or I will use it, maybe it's a client who's like at the very beginning of a project, and they're, we're working on a retreat center right now. And, she has a little bit of money, but maybe not enough money to design enough to do a full rendering. So I can use prompts and create a rendering like that for her deck, where she can raise the money for her project. But when it comes to supply chain, like, I just haven't made that transition yet. It's probably a mistake.
I've been slow to use it as well. I think I'm one of the people who go, ooh, AI. However, we have been using it when it comes to helping set up a project. So in that beginning stages, it's really good sometimes to help us follow like a step by step, or like a course of action. I've been using it for that, and that has seemingly gone well with adjustments. Yeah.
I would say too, like, maybe from a marketing perspective, we've used it, like, we want to reach this kind of client, like, what's the best pathway there?
Well, I think they started using AI and doing room scenes. I can't take this piece of wood and visualize it in the whole room, so they create the room scenes, and so our computer programs offer that, for room scenes, and I think that goes into probably, other categories as well, which we're all using. So I think a lot of us use it and don't even realize we're using it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Yeah.
And we need to follow the future and be behind it. We're all used to our old ways, and it's hard to train us, but we're trainable.
I agree. I use it. AI is really scary. I have the same reaction as Eva. But I think the visual element of it for me has been the most helpful just for my hardware. And I really specifically for me, the rendering and the more technical drawing aspects of like, I'm very art and my supplier is very science. So it's been helpful to help bridge that gap, kind of cut down the timelines from ideation to actual commitment to molds and products. So that's been something that's helped, but with a grain of salt, it's not perfect.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah. Shifting gears. Part of what we had talked about initially when inviting you all to this is this idea of designing for disaster, right? I was about to say, I can't think of a time when ... But it was like, yeah, we had a pandemic 5 years ago, so that's when it happened. But it's interesting because the pandemic feels like it was so long ago. And there were things that we learned about supply chain and cost and pre-planning, mid-planning, planning through projects. And then you have what happened in January, which, believe it or not, it was still this year, which just seems incredible to me. But when you have a situation where you take between Altadena and Pacific Palisades, you take all of that housing stock out, right? And then you have all of these starts, which are staggered based on when you get your permits in and a lot of things, right? And then you try to get everything done all of a sudden. It just generates chaos upon the chaos that was already there. And I kind of feel like you have to change your mindset when it comes to thinking about project management and product delivery, because once something happens, it can happen again. It's just a matter of when. And then there's the unforeseen. How do you work with your clients on designing for disaster? And when I say disaster, I think depending on who you ask, the tariffs were a disaster to many, if not most. How do you plan with your clients for the unforeseen? Eva?
That's a really big question. Right now, we are actually working with a fire victim in the beginning stages of the project, and it's really designing for disaster and going back to our ethos of our clients, how they feel in a space. It's really important for us to start with just the human aspect of them. That has been like probably the biggest learning for me, is how to connect with that client, how to be really empathetic to that client, and how to be a really good listener for someone who's gone through so much and who never expected to rebuild their home. It's not like a regular project where, someone's really enthusiastic about beginning this journey. It's actually quite scary and horrifying on a lot of different levels. So we try to start with just how to gain the trust of the client, and really just like the human to human part of it. And then after that, it's, what are the needs of the client, helping them develop, like, maybe they love their home, and never thought about what the pinch points were and how they wanted to kind of lay it out differently. So it's a big question, but we're, I think, starting with just like human to human, and has really been our goal. And then I think everything else comes afterwards. Once we have that connection, once we have that trust built, then we can talk about how we're going to navigate some of the challenges that are going to come with it. Like you said, getting the permits, even just finding the team that you want to build the home, and then navigating the different price changes and the tariffs and the labor costs and insurance claims, and I mean, there's so many levels to it, especially in Altadena. I could mostly speak to more than the Palisades, but it's been a challenge. Yeah.
So, sort of building on that, I think, we worked on the Case Study 2.0 project, which was like 40 architects that came together and designed houses. It was kind of like a lookbook, so people who've lost their home can choose a plan and then work with that architect. And then we also worked on the New California Classics, which is like a pattern language book for those neighborhoods for the different styles of architecture that really created this sense of community there, which, I think is what everybody really wants to rebuild, is that it's not just their home, it's the community as well. And so through that process, a lot of the things that we've been talking about are, because of the volume, are we using prefab? Are we, what materials are we using? Well, when we're talking about prefab, where is it coming from? Like, we started a project with a company called Bamcor, which is a prefab, and now they went out of business, right? So they were one of the only American companies that was doing that level of prefab. So a lot of the prefab actually comes from Europe, which in some ways is great because it's well engineered, but on the other hand, it's a really far distance for these buildings to come, right? So anyway, there's things like that we were talking about. Obviously, materiality. So planning for disaster is like, what are the material choices that we're making today? Not only that, in the case of LA, aren't going to burn, or in maybe the case of Texas when there's a flood, like what's going to happen. But what if that does happen? What is the result, right? Like, if there's another fire, I sure as heck don't want to be designing a house that's going to burn and add toxicity to the land and to the air and to the water. And so you really have to start investigating these materials on a deeper level than we ever have before. And we should have been this whole time, but our industry really went the way of, it's kind of like, I think about this relative to food, like in the 70s and 80s, like, oh, like we can can, we can jar, we can do all this, like put some chemicals in there and this it'll last forever. You can eat it, 2 years from now and it'll still be good. Well, that's what we did in the building industry too, right? Like, oh, we'll just put a little plastic in there. We'll just throw some chemicals in there. We'll just use this to protect the longevity of the material. And, now we really just need to think about this. So those are the things that we're talking about with our clients as far as like,
So to pivot the conversation. So the thing about Lauzon, which I love, is how green they are to our environment. And I embrace that with my whole heart. And they use 80% of every tree. So where they're at, where their mills are at, all around the footprint to get to when they harvest the tree, they go into the forest, they pick the older tree that's right before he dies. They mark it for, chopping. But if they go into the forest and they see a bird nest in the tree, they won't even touch the tree. They care so much about nature. It's not about the dollar. And to me, that's just so beautiful. They cut the tree, they get it to the mill, and instantly they start debarking it, and all that falls from the tree, they turn into energy. How beautiful is that? And so it's now pellets. It goes into their heaters. It goes into our smokers when we're barbecuing. People don't even think like, oh my gosh, where is this coming from? It goes to the paper mills to make paper. It goes into the bedding for our animals, for our hamsters or rabbits. They use as much of the tree as possible. And in my mind, that is just so beautiful. There are so many other manufacturers out there that just pillage. They chop the trees. They don't replant. They don't care. And like what you said, they create floors just for quick market, and they don't think about the future, what's going into our landfills, how is this going to break down, how is this in our homes, what is this doing to us? And that is why hardwood is so beautiful for you. It's nature, it's earthing. You walk around it barefoot and you're actually earthing. When you're walking on plastic, what is that? It's terrible.
Brought to you by the Wood Council. Pivoting slightly and talking about the idea of what specifiers are asking for on behalf of their clients in communication with showrooms. I mean, you think about the cycle, and these are clients that in many cases you have no communication with at any point in time during the process. But you're working with your showrooms who are working with their designers. How does that affect the products you use, the way you manufacture, and the relationship you have with your showroom? And I say that knowing how well design hardware works with all three pillars.
Yeah. For me, I think it's just kind of building off what we've been talking about too. I appreciate what you said. There's just an intentionality, I think, with the natural disasters and with the tariffs that has just brought to light one of the, I guess, unintended benefits of having those conversations is that we've really started to look more closely. We've really started to ask questions of like, does this actually need to be made? How should this be made? What needs to be put into it for all these different reasons? And just forcing us to be more critical than we have in the past, both in terms of how we produce something, why we produce something, and if it even honestly needs to be produced. So I think that is something that I'm hopeful will continue, and it sucks that it came from such like a chaotic place, but I think it's ultimately going to be beneficial for everyone. And what I'm seeing more is like, so all my products are solid brass, which is something that is more durable. It has longevity, kind of feeding into this idea that you're not going to have to change your hardware that frequently. It's something that will endure over time. And I'm seeing more of a trend of people wanting that. It's obviously there's a price point associated with it, but aesthetically it's better. And I think just for a long-term longevity, it's better for the project. And I know there are a lot of players in the space that don't necessarily carry that with like brass or bronze and don't focus on the material that is being used, but that's kind of for my niche of hardware. One way that I've doubled down and I've been seeing there's increasing demand for it. My showrooms are asking for it. Their customers, their designers are all asking for it. And so just finding those, like finding your kind of niche and your area of focus and what you want to put forth as your pillar for your brand and your products, I think is something that I've been working on and that I'm seeing with my showroom partners also moving in that direction more.
Yeah, interesting, and I think that's really important. Shifting from past and present to future, because you brought up the T word. I was going to wait before I brought up the T word. And it's not tariffs. But let's talk about trends, because I feel like we're at a pivot point. And I want to throw an idea out there and open it up. We're at a place now where I can't recall in my lifetime the level of investment required for architecture, design, build, design, right? We're also at a place where uninsurability, I mean, if you're in Altadena or Palisades, if you're insurable, it's going to be incredibly expensive. The cost of everything goes up and continues to rise. As you look to the future, with regard to trend and ideas and concepts, is it going to be less but more, as in fewer products, but a higher quality and a greater investment? Or is there are you hearing any other ideas from your clients as far as the curation and the edit of their projects?
I mean, I try to move towards friendless. I think that it's, again, you were talking about this, ultimately, like I'm asking the clients, like, what do they need? What makes them feel joy? What makes them feel presence? What makes them feel rooted? And those are the ways in which I'm sort of pulling or pushing or trying to curate for the client. when they're talking about, the economic side of their investment, I try to ask questions about, again, that going back to those root values, like what are those elements? And so we kind of help try to curate that, how is this going to look in your life in the long run? What's going to support you? Maybe it means that you have a smaller house and you do an ADU. Maybe it means that you don't actually need, it is interesting because when I think about, the burn areas, one of the conversations we've been having is not everybody wants to go back and build the biggest house they can. They want to build a house that works for them. And so as developers and sometimes as architects, we're asked to maximize the amount of space. Historically, that's what we were being asked. We want the biggest house we can get on this lot that meets the zoning ordinances. Well, that's not necessarily the case, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. It might not be the best investment to have a smaller house if you look at it that way, but it's about your life and your own experience and your family's experience.
Yeah, I find that to be true as well. And I think the trends also are different for the different areas. LA is just broken up into so many different areas and cities. So what we see happening in Malibu versus what's happening in Altadena may be different. Also, what's happening on the East Coast, we have some projects there. So those clients we're finding are totally different. But speaking to the Altadena client, we're definitely seeing, in general, we try to leave space for them to grow into their home as well. I know sometimes in design, as designers, we want to put the last little bowl on the table just because we want it to be photo perfect and feel like it's totally turnkey. But in the last year or two, we're finding that people want to collect things over time. We want there to be that empty space on the dining table for you to bring that beautiful bowl in that you found at the Rose Bowl flea market, or those special moments that are really going to speak to you. So we try to design in a way that leaves that open space for you to grow into your home.
Does that affect the way you design products? Do you think about, and what I'm speaking of specifically is, and we don't like to talk, there's nothing wrong with trends. Trends are phenomenal for predictive value. It's when they become trendy that it's a problem, right? Because then it goes on social, and then everyone wants that because they saw one of their favorite actor. I don't even say him anymore. I don't say. You almost made me say Kardashian, but I'm not going to do that. But I speaking to that, I feel like we're in a very interesting moment in time right now. How do you predict what clients are going to want in 6 months from now?
Hardware is interesting because it's very slow moving in a lot of ways, and so I have a lot of time to kind of track the trends from lighting and furniture and things like that over time. I think there's very obvious ways to kind of do fast fashion hardware and do fun cutesy things. My Smiley knob is probably the closest to that, but I still think he's timeless. But I think that there's different shapes and forms and silhouettes that pop up in other adjacent industries that I definitely look at when I'm thinking about designing my next collection. But my process also takes a long time from idea to finish, so there's buffer kind of built in already. But with hardware, I think the timelessness of it is part of what I am designing for in Hapny. So the same idea of being trendless and being something that can last over time. It's tempting sometimes to feed into different shapes. I have a couple of more fun silhouettes that I'm going to launch early next year that are a little more scallopy or things like that, which have been around. Scallops are very much on the end of the trend train at this point. But I think part of taking my time with it, both by choice but also just through the nature of being a small business and having constraints, is I can kind of let trends ride out for a little bit and then see what's persisting and then take that and adapt it and mix it with something that's also timeless. So making one aspect of it kind of appear and how can I incorporate it in a way that it doesn't feel trendy, but it kind of nods to this idea, nods to something that we're seeing a lot of, but will still last more over time. So like the knurled, I have like a knurled collection. Knurled was very, very big. It still is. There's so much of it. So right now my knurled pole has like a little bit of knurling at the bottom of the stem. So something like that where I'm taking a trend that I'm seeing and I have seen and I've seen other products exist like that, but how can I do it in a new way that feels like it will just last a little bit longer and isn't as overtly there to where when the trend dies, it's no longer relevant.
How does the company think about, it's funny because when you talk about wood, I think that's probably the second oldest building material. Stone first,
Yes.
then wood. When you think about uses, like if we were to go back in the 80s in the Valley, nobody was putting wood in their kitchens. Nobody. But now, or at the beach cities. But now, wood in the kitchen, if it's in the rest of the house, it's in the kitchen too. How do you think about the business and wall application, ceiling application, other applications for the product, and as you look to the future and looking at trends and thinking about how your industry, your business, your company competes with others in the space, how do you think about growing as it relates to trending ideas for next year?
So when it comes to hardwood flooring, we obviously we only have color that we can change. We're wood, and that's where we go. We have certain cuts of the tree, so you can get a cleaner look, or rift and quartered, or rift only. Lots of knots, lots of character. There are so many choices in wood, and it comes to color. So color is something that you're able to change on the wood for your trend. Gray, everybody was doing gray floors. Now nobody wants a gray floor, right? So that's where you need to be able to pivot quickly. Right now in the industry, it went right back to where I love. We're back in our browns and our soft browns, our warm browns, maybe a little red. I love it. And width of the boards, everybody wants extremely wide. Well, to get extremely wide, you need very tall, old trees. And it's not always feasible, right, to get a very clean floor like that. So then your price goes up, and so customers have to understand the expectations of what they're asking for. A rift only, I had a customer ask a couple years back for a rift only floor for 4,000 square feet, and I said, we can produce that. It'll take about 2 years. It's an ask that's not it's not deliverable in a timely manner, but if you want it, it can be accomplished. Wood in my mind is just so breathtaking. When you walk into a home, how your home makes you feel, it's so warm and comforting. It's beautiful. It feels good. Going on the walls, going on the ceiling, it's breathtaking. You need to know how to break it up, though.
And I will just say this, unless you have a client that is specifying gray for their wood floors, it's awesome. Okay, as we wrap this up, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, and Eva, I'm gonna come to you last because I've come to you first so many times. So we'll go this way. I'm going to tell you the prompt, and then I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it. I'll vamp for a minute while you think about it. I'm going to ask you each to break out your crystal ball. Break out the crystal ball and tell me what you think some of the most important issues as it relates to design, architecture, product specification, product supply chain in the next, let's I don't want to go too far out. Let's call it 6 months to a year. So in 2026, what are some of the biggest changes that you think we're going to see, or that are really going to grasp on or take hold? And it could be supply chain, fixing, not fixing, getting worse, insurability. It could be Are homes now in the burn scar area is going to go up faster? Is it going to be slower? What's density going to look like? What are ADUs going to be? What do you think? And it could be any of those things. It could be relationships with your showroom partners or your brand partners, manufacturing partners. What do you think is going to change in 6 months to a year?
Supply chain for me in my bubble is one of the biggest. So I think just understanding what products you're using, where they're coming from, what is the pricing, what is the timeline, all those things are going to be, they've always been important, but I think now it's going to be one of the primary or like first things that comes into conversation. Building off of that, just communication, partnership with our designers, contractors, showrooms, everyone that we're working with, like we've been speaking to, just over communication, like really, really timely communication. All of those things, again, have always been important, but I think now they're just going to be of critical importance and kind of the top priority to understanding how our project can and will come to life. And I think also just more intentionality, like we've been speaking to. I think it's maybe not the biggest home or this, old American dream idea, but trying to build a space that feels good, that makes sense for you, maybe that has more flexibility, and then what you do put into it, you maybe just care a little bit more about, pay a little more attention to how it makes you feel, what you want, because we all know that everything can be taken away at any moment.
Customization?
Yeah, customization I think is key, both in like literal customization, but also I think maybe just paying a little bit more attention and like being more involved and more informed. So yes, to like actually create something that's one of a kind, but I think just being more focused and having more of the mood boarding and those types of steps.
Purposeful.
Yeah, purposeful.
Rachel?
First, I will say that I actually don't think in the next 6 months we're going to see a vast difference in the rebuilding. I think we're still probably like 9 to 12 months from that, unfortunately. Just based on what I know about the zoning and the permitting and et cetera. I think, though, in the industry, what we are going to see a lot of, and I've been hearing a lot of vendors talking about this, is a change in the commitment of circular economy in the products. Like, I just found out about vinyl fabric that actually deteriorates, goes back to the earth without any chemicals, right? Like, I've been learning about a lot of brands, whether it be wood manufacturers or that are looking at making this vocal commitment of when they are going to be what we all think of as truly sustainable. And so I think that is going to be a huge change in the industry. And I actually think that part of that came from the fires and the fact that we know that, we really can't be using materials that are going to continue to toxify our environment.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. I don't see much changing in the next 6 months to a year, but I agree with you completely that it really did open everybody's eyes to say, oh my gosh. And there are so many products out there that we need to just really never use again and be cautious of it and pick products that are going to last, like your grass. It's fabulous. We need to have products that our grandparents had. My grandma had a refrigerator in her garage for almost 40 years and did zero maintenance on it, and it ran till they finally said, well, we don't need it anymore. It never died.
Sun gold or avocado green?
Avocado green! And we need to get back to that, where we have products that last, definitely. And I love that.
Yeah, I think like back to the basics is really great. And then also for us, like making sure we take really strategic partnerships. And I think that's what the underlying of all of us are saying, like thinking about where the things are coming from, what it's made of, how it's going to last over time, asking 3 and 4 and 10 questions to vendors, And I think it's going to be less about price point and more about durability, longevity, and really like how it makes us feel.
I'm going to add one more, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I do think in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to see a lot of people on their existing property saying, what can I keep in this space? What can I reuse?
Yeah.
And I think that is going to really, we haven't been doing that, right? Like, we haven't even been thinking, where's all this going when you rip it out, right? So, but I think that's, starting to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Thank you for that, by the way. That's not easy. With that, I want to open this up to see if you have any questions. And what we're going to do is, because we're recording this, if you have any questions, then shout them out, and then I'll rephrase them so that we have them recorded. Any questions? Yes, sir.
My question is, what do you foresee with labor supply? We have older guys like me dropping out of the business, younger guys not being trained necessarily in the trades, and sweeping up a lot of labor at Home Depot or other places that are emptying out construction sites.
That is an excellent question. Seriously, quality trades, shortage of trades. How do you address that?
I mean, first, I feel like you're trying to make me cry. No, I mean, I'm struggling with that.
It's a real issue.
And like a lot of the tradesmen who I have had amazing relationships with that are collaborative, and we know the questions to ask each other to do the best work. When they retire, the young guys, number one, they don't understand the history. Not only do they not understand how to do it, they don't understand the history. So, and that's a problem. Like, I've had the younger trades guys say, like, we can't do that. And I'm like, no, but I've done it. Oh, but I can't do it. No, but I've done it, like, with the person who used to run this construction company. So we can do it, right? So I feel like it's starting, we really have to redevelop relationships, and we really need the older guys to stick around as long as they can.
Keep going.
To train the young guys, like, to patiently train the young guys, because I say guys because, quite honestly, it still really is guys.
Yeah. Honestly, the trades, our young generation needs to go back to trade schools, and that is a big deal. And they do actually have talked about this over and over again, and they say our next millionaires are going to be your plumbers and your electricians, because we are hurting for that industry as well.
But the problem with that conversation is I'm experiencing young people going into it because they think they're going to be the next millionaire.
Right.
Not because they love the craft.
Because they love the craft.
And you have to love the craft, just like we have to love the design process.
Yes.
You have to love the craft.
You have to love the
Do
craft.
you ever see a time in the near future where we will encourage our daughters to be a plumber, an electrician, a contractor, a fabricator, a builder? Will we ever see that time?
No.
I appreciate the honesty. I think you may be right.
I wouldn't ask my daughter to crawl under a house and do that type of work. Not that women won't do it. I do know there are female plumbers, but my daughter's a nurse. I'm better with that trade.
I would, except in the collaboration of other women.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
Because I know how I get treated on the job site sometimes, and I don't want to have my daughters to have to go through that.
Yeah.
And I do think that's probably going to get
and
worse.
I can answer that because I am in a male-dominated industry,
Yeah.
and I do know exactly what you're talking about and have lived it. So,
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Hey, Jen, do you have a question? Jen?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Teamsters do have programs for lighting, plumbing, electrical, and that they have, and I'm going to say it very diversity, equity, and inclusivity programs to bring women into these fields, and those have been currently cut. I'm sure they'll come back in the future at some point in time, but that has been a push to really increase a presence of women in these male-dominated trades and stuff. So, you know, I'm a firm believer that whatever you can do, I can do, regardless of gender. So, yeah, I think that if we continue to reach out across the board to all sectors, we can protect the industry.
Yeah, Elaine?
I was going to say that being a designer myself, my biggest issues with my tradespeople that I've had for 40 years with me, my plumbers and my electricians, my painters, my plumbers, all that, their children no longer want to be in that profession anymore. They think they can go into AI.
Yes.
And they're all into that. Nobody, or they want to be, like doing something with podcasts and things like that. I don't know any of the kids.
My kids want no part of what I do, believe me.
But having teenage kids, grandchildren, and being in this business for so long,
Yeah.
I see it flat. I don't know how to get them back where that we want these kids to go to these trade schools. We need to get them there.
Yeah, side note, this is a conversation for the future that I think we will definitely be having here. And I think that's a great point, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think one of the things I think we have to discuss more in the future, and by the way, we're not going to cover this today, but how many times has a designer walked onto a project site, an architect who happens to be a woman walked onto a project site only to have the contractor, who's almost always male, sort of go and mansplain what the project is, and you're like, dude, I designed it. I think I got it. But that's just sort of ingrained in the culture. That's a conversation for another day, but it's a great topic. I'm glad that came up. Thank you. Thank you, Shelly, Eva, Priya, Rachel. What an incredible conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Avi Balsam, with Design Hardware, for making these conversations possible. It has been a pleasure and an honor hosting these from Design Hardware, so thank you for that. Thank you, Michelle Solomons. Thank you for the past 6 years of partnership and exploration. It has been an absolute joy working with you. Congratulations on your next chapter, and I wish you all the best. And thank you again for making these past 6 years so extraordinary and special. And thank you for listening. Could not do this without you, wouldn't want to. And my hope is that these conversations inspire you. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, TimberTech, the Best Buy Company, and Shelter Republic. Your sponsorship of Convo by Design allows me to seek out sublime design stories from beyond the work itself and showcase unique personalities, chasing new ideas and changing the way we think about our industry. Please give these sponsors an opportunity on your next project. They are in it for the design community. They relish relationships with the designers and architects that make up our great industry. So give them a try. And again, thank you for listening and sharing this journey of ours. 2026 marks 13 years of constant publication of the podcast with over 700 interviews. It's been a blast. If you happen to be, when you hear this in a couple of weeks or a week, if you happen to be at KBIS, I'm hosting the 2026 KBIS podcast studio again this year in Orlando. So make sure you come by and say hello. Please keep those guest suggestions coming, as well as thoughts about where you might like to see the show recorded. Convo by Design at Outlook.com and on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, focused, and driven so you can rise above the chaos.